This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, yes, madam said go ahead. And hello all. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to all of you who are in your respective regions. This is Sagar. Welcome to the demo session regarding the full stack observability with Grafana. This is Sagar. I'm coming with 16 years of experience in IT. Out of that, 7 years I'm into AppDynamics and Grafana in the observability and the platform. So I am here to make you a detailed understanding on like how the observability is different from the monitoring, and what is an approach it is going to be implemented in order to monitor in order to measure the performance of the three pillars like metrics, traces, logs, and yeah, that's all. Yeah, before getting into the session, just wanted to have a just a 2 or 3 seconds of your introduction. So, what's your background, and so that it will be very benefit for us. Okay, that's fine. So, anybody knows like observability? Are you familiar with observability?
I have tried Nagios and Relic, but
Mhm.
from this one I'm new to it.
Okay, so can you just explain me? I mean, just maybe one line. What is observability?
To ensure that availability of the servers, right? So we need to ensure the system is intact, like there should not be any services going down. And for example, if you want to monitor any CPU usage, memory usage, or any display usage and all, right? Using observability tool, we can make use of it to track that.
Okay, okay, yeah, I got that's a part of that, but basically, whatever you said, that is belong to a, I mean, one of the parameter of monitoring. So where that comes it as an SLO, service level objective. So that like focuses majorly on the availability and the reliability of the system in terms of the response time, the throughput, and the resource utilization. But anyways, thanks for your time. Like quickly, I'm just sharing my screen. Okay. Uh, I hope it is visible to everyone. Okay. Uh, yeah, right now we are seeing that nowadays being into a digital world. So the application, the landscape, kind of like becoming more complex here, because you're not finding like a, the application which is built on like, the on a single platform. Okay. Right now, like you're seeing like the application, like is like built up on a different environment. You could see like a public cloud, there is a private cloud, and there will be, you can see like an hybrid model where like the legacy systems are still pointing to the on-premise, and also you can see like some of the systems are like having located by making an IoT communication, and also like your from the digital experience point of view, like end user. Okay, so there are like the applications kind of like as planning to like access the application across the globe by using a various channels, and you'd be having like a different types of networks kind of like interacting over the geographical locations in order to meet the applications. And also like once you have a application landscape is kind of like becoming the more complex, so you have to have like a the appropriate security concerns in terms of like measuring the vulnerabilities, or in terms of like the code, how it is looking like, and what are the security measures you need to do. And also like there are certain applications which are making a calls from the what do you call, from the software as a service model, okay, where you don't have any kind of like a dedicated system available where you can just have, we can tweak the application. It has to be as a SaaS based application. For example, if you could see like the Salesforce application, okay, so it never have to be have an on-premise application, so it has to be has like a SaaS based applications, okay. So in that circumstances, right, okay, but still you have to like measure the overall performance and how the digital end user experience are performing. And also one important point is that in the full stack observability, okay, when we talk about the full stack observability, it is nothing but an application, okay, that the overall the business ecosystem is built up on like a different stacks, okay. So one could be like in the business where the top leaders or the business people, so they try to measure the application from the business point of view. Suppose if I take an SAP application, suppose if I'm performing like the monitoring and observability pattern, okay, using an AppDynamics or maybe Dynatrace, okay. Those person, the business people, so mainly they will see like they wanted to see like the number of stocks, okay, number of orders placed in the warehouse, and what is the current status of the warehouse, and how it is like directly implied to the customers from the digital end user experience, okay. So those kind of like a business layer, okay. Then after that it comes to like an application, so where it is another layer of a customer ecosystem, where you're having like a different, the types of the components are like interacting each other. So maybe there may be like a third party systems, or maybe like some third party services, or we can call it as a application dependency services, okay. So for example, if you take suppose if you want to kind of like open an account, or maybe go for any mortgage loan in maybe in like HSBC bank or whatever it is, right. So what they're gonna do is like, so they're gonna take our like SSN number, and then what they will do, they will run the user credibility using like Equifax, or there are some other credit unions are available, okay. So what they're going to do, they just run that, and they will try to see like what is the user profile out of that by running the SSN. So that there what's happening is like, so you are sending a request outside the customer ecosystem. So it has to call the Equifax or whatever the third party system. So then it has to come back a feedback saying that yes, he is eligible to go for the loan. So so what happens is like, so if you talk about in an application, right, so basically like there will be the three phenomena you can consider. Like one is an visibility, and another one is an insights, then followed by then actions, okay. So basically the visibility is nothing but uh, monitoring all aspects of the application, okay. So from the full stack observability, and then coming to the insights, nothing but how you are correlating, okay. So what you have been captured when you're trying to do an observability and the monitoring on the particular system, okay? So that talks about an insight. So once then actions, okay. So once you correlate, okay, your the overall application performance with either business or with infrastructure or with digital end user experience or with the database or with the security, okay. So when you correlate this one, right, okay, so based on that, okay, how you are going to, what you are going to act on it, okay, whether you are going to generate a incident where you need to you need to run some sort of automation operations, so that you try to do some self healing, or maybe you just run some shell scripting on the targeted system, so that the entire ecosystem would be become normal. So what are these are like certain parameters, okay. So where we will be considering the overall application landscape is in complexity. Suppose what I talk about, like these are different layers, like the business application infrastructure end user, the security, okay. So you suppose, if you don't have like a tool where the full stack observability is not supporting, right? So you have to go for like kind of like a siloed monitoring. Okay, see, for business you have to go for the Google Analytics. For the application monitoring you have to go for an AppDynamics or the Dynatrace. Suppose if you are going for a security, okay, so you have to go for some security testing tools. And if it is infrastructure, you have to go for SolarWinds or maybe OpsRamp or whatever it is. And if it is a digital end user experience, okay, so you have to go with the 1000 days or whatever it is. So what happens is like, suppose if you have a different tools and there will be kind of like a disconnect, in order to measure the total performance, of a particular request, which it is triggered from the front end, all the way like navigating to the different systems by hitting a third party service. Okay, so in this case, so what's happening is like, so because the Grafana, okay, so the Grafana is kind of like a capability of providing a single pane of glass, okay, so where, okay, you can try to measure the performance, of the business experience. You can measure the performance of the application, in terms of the request, the response time, and the throughput, the errors or whatever it is. You can also measure the performance of an end user experience like over a period of time. Okay, so how the end user is like, his performance is behaving, whether it is a normal, abnormal, slow, very slow, it is stalled. Okay, or how the particular website from the synthetic perspective, right? So how the overall application URL looks like across the geographical location. So when it comes to infrastructure, okay, so how the overall like the resources of a particular application performing, whether they are up to the mark, or you can see like any deviation in their performance. So that's where like the application is kind of like not able to respond. Okay, so to perform, so these individual layers of a full stack observability, right? Okay, so nowadays like there are like so many silo tools are available in the market. But again, at the end of the day, you are not going to like measure a complete end-to-end performance. Okay, so having said that, considering all those parameters, okay, so these Grafana labs are brought up like a single pane of glass solution, which is like a Grafana. So where you can measure the full stack observability, covering up all these different layers of the business ecosystem. So that's where like we are kind of like, talking about like how this observability, okay, so observability will help to the customer ecosystem, so that how you are going to monitor. Okay, so what are the different elements of a customer ecosystem from the business, from the observability point of view, so which it will help in order to get, the scrape, or maybe the extract the telemetry data. We call it as a telemetry data. So telemetry data is nothing but it is a combination of log events. It's a combination of the metrics, where it is kind of like a measurement of a particular element. Let it be CPU utilization, memory utilization, volume disk utilization, number of IO operations are making, number of read operations, all those are number of errors over a period of time, how many exceptions has occurred. Okay, so that is also like uh, one element of the observability. Okay, so these kind of things, like how we are going to streamline. Okay, so by coming up like a framework, where it will kind of like an observe the system, okay, from a streamlined process. Okay, so by reading the entire system in terms of the traces, in terms of the logs, and in terms of the metrics. Okay, so what are these three elements? Okay, so these three elements we call it as the pillars. Okay, so these are the main pillars, so which help in order to understand the Grafana, or New Relic, or whatever the tools. Okay, so how the telemetry data is like, the traversing across the customer ecosystem. Okay, you may get out, like, then we are already doing it with an existing tools. Okay, but that is kind of like a monitoring. Okay, so there is a huge difference between an observability and the monitoring. Okay, so the monitoring will say like what's happening, hey boss, what's happening over a period of time on the application, on the servers. But when it comes to observability, so the observability tell like how the data is, how the system can be understand. Okay, so from the traces perspective, from the metrics, from the logs, from the errors or whatever it is, so that we can extract the data uh, from those different elements of the observability system. So then we can kind of like expose it. So let's talk about like kind of like an observability and the monitoring. Okay, so this is what like I was telling about, like, so what exactly then observability. Okay, so it's just something like in a practice. Observability is sometimes something like in a practice where, okay, you need to understand the system from the different parameters. I mean to say from the different kind of like elements. So it would be the traces. Then what do you mean by a traces? Okay, so trace is nothing but it is something like an identifier. Okay, so which in terms of from the open source point of view, so this is something like an identifier, so where it has like the details of a particular request about the traces and the spans. So what happens once you pull up that id, right? So identifier. Okay, so then you try to see like, hey, what happened? Okay, what happened over a period of time? Okay, so right from the front end system to, and what are the system it is interacted, and what are the downstream systems, and what are the third party systems that have been interacted, and how the calls are being made to the databases, and how if it is making any calls to synthetic in order to check the performance from the front end. Okay, so all these like the what we call it as the chronological view of entire application over a period of time, right? So that can be traced, okay, using a main pillar which is called as a traces. Okay, so that is a one pillar of an observability. Then coming to the metrics. Okay, so we are already having a traces. So what we are going to do with metrics? Because the traces will tell you like where and what it happened. Okay, so you are like pumping some request from a front end system saying that you are making a third party transfer. Okay, it is not like even intra-bank. You are making a transfer to the interbank. Okay, so in that time, in that case, so what it's going to happen is that you see that there is a like huge response deviation. Okay, because of it is talking to a different systems. It has to make a third party call in order to, it has to call a endpoint. Okay, so uh, where it will call uh, the interbank via the particular API, so that it will send all this data in a highly secured manner. So then it will drop it into the third party. So I mean the other bank. So in that case, what happens is like you can see like there is a disconnect. Okay, so because that might be like compatibility issues, or it might be the something like where it is a bad request from the receiver point of view, and where you can see like there could be some possibilities of unauthorized operation happen like 400, or maybe there is like some SSL like system session break, or maybe it could be like a 401 page not found. So there could be like a different, the reasons, or the potential causes. So where your request might have been processed successfully. So in that time, in that case, what happens is like you can pull up like this traces. So where it is kind of like a distributed view of a distributed chronological view of your particular request, where it will tell you like, so how your request has been like interacted with different systems. So then in that case, but you wanted to measure like how each element, each component of your entire system is performing. Okay, so that can be the measured by the metric. Okay, so what are those measures? We call it as a key performance indicator. So where they will indicate like how your overall performance is the behaving. One is like a CPU utilization, memory, volume, response time, error rate. Okay, then the overall service response time, and how about the JVM behavior in terms of like the garbage collection? What about the minor GC, major GC? How much time it has spent for these two components on a system? So all these like different the metrics which are nothing but a measuring points of your system. Okay, so that can be measured for a particular trace. So that is the metric. So then comes to about logs. So the logs is nothing but it displays about like what are the activities it has been performed, okay, in a text format, or maybe call it as a log event, which is like a readable format. Okay, so from there we can try to the identify how the system has been performed. So for example, if you just run a Splunk query in that one saying that I'm having index equal to some schedule transfer, and I say that I will enter some trace ID. Okay, then I'll apply the pipe symbol, then I'll give reverse command. So when you run for a 1 hour session, right? So in that case, you can see that it will tell you like that particular ID, which is nothing but a trace ID, has been interacted with different systems. Okay, so that's where these logs will give you the insights on the particular request interacting with the different systems in a readable format. Okay, so here what we're taking about like the observability. So what I told about, like I just put it in a single liner. And coming to the monitoring, so the monitoring is nothing but just it will tell like what and how it is performing. That's all. Okay, how it is capturing, and where it is going to the system, what is capturing it, it will not do, because basically the monitoring is nothing but it's just kind of a wrapper. Okay, it's just a wrapper sitting on top of your customer ecosystem. Okay, because it doesn't do any extra curriculum activities. Okay, what exactly it does is that whatever your system, okay, is exposing your data. Okay, let it be, it might be either by API call, or maybe it will expose by maybe some JSP call, or maybe it can expose the response through Ajax call, or maybe it can expose through virtual page, whatever it may be, because whatever the like implementation mechanism so that have been like built in the overall customer ecosystem. So based on that, the monitoring will just extract that, and it will just showcase in a single pane of glass, because it doesn't do any extra curriculum activities. But whereas in observability, right, so once you have observability, okay, you can easily understand like how easily understand about the telemetry data. Okay, when I say telemetry data, it is nothing but this. It could be either data could be in the form of logs, or data could be in the form of matrices, or data could be in the form of a traces. Okay, so once you have that observability, okay, enabled, okay, in your system, okay, how you are going to enable, you may get a question that how it can be enabled. Okay, so there are so many tools available. I mean to say like there are so many like what do you call the SDKs, the software development kits available in the market, like open telemetry, or maybe there are like Ager, or there are like Pega is having their own open telemetry. Okay, so once you have the telemetry, okay, deployed in your application code, right, maybe at the method level, class level, because it just go, okay, it just goes like a racket, and it just go inside the application, and it will just capture all the insights at the call class method interfaces level also. So whenever you perform any schedule transfer, or whether you can do an account management, or whether you can delete a payee, add a payee, or this, your logout, or whatever the operations like activity you perform from the front end, right? So once you have a like hotel open telemetry collector sitting inside the system, right? Okay, so it will perform an extra activities, and then just get all those data, and then it will publish into the front end system. Like it can be Grafana monitoring system, or maybe it can be AppDynamics, or it can be like Dynatrace, or it can be like New Relic, or it can be like 24 by 7. There are like some hell lot of monitoring tools available in the market. So the observability will go and get how the data is being extracted from the system. Then it will be through monitoring, it can be presented. Okay, so that's where like this observability and the monitoring stands. It has their own positions in the market. So I'll just take a pause. Any questions before just getting into this slide?
Can you just show that second slide? Just want to read that definition
Sorry.
for that observability.
Okay. Uh, So here you can see like I just put up like a small diagram. Okay, so where you can because in the previous slide we talk about like this is blah 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 it does blah 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 that does and this do that all the like all the the nonsense and everything we have studied. But when it comes to actually when if you wanted to present it to the customer or maybe to to your application team or your delivery team or your project team or the client team or whatever it is. Okay, so that's where like we can just say that always observability is like the boss of the monitoring, because as I said that monitoring is just it will collect the data and display it into the user. Later we can display in the reports format, graphs, pie chart, line, bar, whatever it is, whatever the name you gave it, it will be ready to publish in the data. But how this data is extracting, okay, so that's where this the observability plays a major role in terms of the metrics, the distributed tracing, logs and exception tracking. Okay, so there will be different of exceptions you can find out like 400 like it is the nothing but authorized error. 401 is like page not found, 500 is like internal server error, and there is like bad request. Okay, so all those details can be easily extracted from the observability. So that's where like we are talking about here is monitoring is nothing but as like one of our mate was telling about like availability and all those things. So those are like pertain to the monitoring where you can see like availability. Nowadays you can see that about this reliability, which is like call it as a site reliability engineering. Okay, so where that person responsibility in order to ensure like the system doesn't drops beyond the target value, which is has been set up. Okay, so that's where this availability is measured in terms of response time, in terms of throughput, in terms of the resources. So all these three different parameters play a major role from the availability. And coming to the performance, of course this is nothing but in excuse me, so how it is behaving over a period of time, and the capacity in terms of the resources, like so how the resource utilization is happening again is the application from the Kubernetes point of view, from uh, from the different cloud service providers like Microsoft, Azure. You can find like Google Cloud, or also you can find out like the AWS. Okay, so these and all like what exactly does is that monitoring is nothing but it just collects and analyze the data, and whereas the observability try to aggregates data of coming from the different the portions of an application, so then it will collate together and it will present it to the system. So that's where we are talking about, just spoke about like what are the main pillars about that, which I talking about. We call it as logs, traces, and the metrics. So the metric always it will be a numerical format. Either you can measure it in the bucket, or you can measure it in the summary, or you can measure it in the series, or whether you can measure it in the different dimensions of your particular attribute during an interval of time. So that talks about a metric, and the trace which I was talking about, like it will give you an insights on end-to-end journey of a request through a distributed system. It is nothing but it could be like talking to the multiple system within an organization, or also it is making a call to the outside party through making a third party call, which is like a dependency service. Still now in the market, there are like few tools are there where they are not able to measure the third party service. But I can guarantee say that this Grafana and AppDynamics, there are like certain tools which built on an observability platform where they are like ready to measure the third party services. But from the license, from the cost perspective, once you have an Grafana, you can easily optimize the cost where from the AppDynamics they are like very expensive. Okay, AppDynamics, Dynatrace, New Relic, they are like leaders in the market. Of course, from the observability standpoint, they are still not matured their solution. Okay, they are still working on top of it. But whereas if you look at like Grafana and also you can look at about OpenSearch, Elastic, Splunk, and you can look at about Datadog. So these are like going on hand in hand, where they are like already the leaders in the observability market. So that's the main the hot cake for them to sell in the market from the observability standpoint. And coming to the log, as I said, that it is kind of like a text record of an event, so that has like what happened over a period of time. Okay. And then coming to, okay sir, you talked about like this and telemetry you're talking about, and how I wanted to okay, I understand like there is a system, okay, I have like some Java based application. I understand about like what is an observability. Now I wanted to implement an observability from the telemetry data point of view. Okay, so that's where like this hotel collector, which is kind of like the jar, we can call it as a what do you call, a software package. What exactly it does is that basically it is a vendor agnostic. When I say vendor agnostic, it is nothing but it can work with the Datadog, it can work with AppDynamics, it can work with Dynatrace, it can work with Neural Lake, Grafana, whatever the tool it is there. It is kind of like a APM agnostic, where you can just easily like dilute into any solution. So then it can start the fetching the details from the ground level. When I say ground level, from the class and method level. Suppose if you're performing a certain operation like schedule transfer, or like third part making a call to deactivate an account from the end user perspective, right? So even this open telemetry is available, where it can give you like which class method has been called up. Okay, so that's where like I was talking about, like, so basically open telemetry is something like it is a framework. It will tell how you can merge this into in a particular project or particular application, particular module or whatever it is. So then you can extract the metrics, traces, logs, and exception out of that collection. Then you can present it to the front end system. So this is the one like which I spoken about a telemetry. Okay, so it's a something. Telemetry is nothing but OTel is nothing but it is a SDK package, where it will help to get a to read the telemetry data. Then it will present over the observability platform. Let it be through Grafana, or through AppDynamics, or through Dynatrace, or through Neuralink, or through Zoho 24 by 7, or .com monitor, whatever it is. So it is able to just extract the telemetry data. Then it will convert like by running some collectors, so to get a suitable data. Then it will present it to the front end system. So that's where I'm talking about, like, telemetry is nothing but output collected from the different sources in observability. They can be analyzed together, and it provides a view of the relations basically. Like, suppose if I pull trace data, like as I was talking about the earlier use case, where the end user or maybe the customer is not able to make a transfer to the third party system. So in that case, what happened is, like, so this telemetry, what happens, it has like an interconnect between the metrics, logs, and traces. Okay, so suppose if you take some trace ID, which is like a numeric of identifier. Sometimes it would be an alphanumeric. So once you just run that trace ID on Grafana or whatever it is, so then it will connect with the log, where it will get a the relevant log data. So then it will pull that up, and it will give you a trace ID. So that's where like those are kind of like an interlinked, and they're having a dependencies. Uh, but but uh, uh, the main the main thing is that when we always like keep knocking the door with the three pillars of observability: logs, metrics, and traces. Okay, so these are kind of like these all are a kind part of the telemetry data. And coming to like, okay, sir, you discussed about this telemetry, open telemetry, and all those details. So now, how I want to implement, because I cannot go and sit inside the system and I can just push the data and no, no, it's not going to happen. You have to have like run some solution, okay, observability solution on top of the system, ensuring that okay, the system, the Grafana should understand that observability data. Okay, then it extract the data and present it into the Grafana in terms of like beautiful dashboards. Okay, from the executive level or from the development level, from the the L1 and L2 level, which is called NOC, the network operation center level, or let it be like the development team are there, you can do that. Or maybe you wanted to present the database at the service level, or you wanted to present the data at the infrastructure level, or you want to present the data at the the cloud service provider level. Okay, so those are kind of like a different different paradigms where you wanted to extract the open telemetry data presented the dashboards via Grafana. So that's where to do that, like we will kind of like talk about the major components of the Grafana. The one is the Prometheus, Grafana, and traces. Okay, so nowadays like Prometheus, you can imagine that maybe you can think that nowadays Prometheus is like going to be slowly, it is going to the ramp down. Nowadays we are getting like the Mimir, which is kind of like very less expensive from the cost optimization perspective than Prometheus, but still for the learning, for the learners and like the people, like the people as right. So we can still make our hands dirty with Prometheus, where it basically Grafana doesn't do anything. Okay, just Grafana is something like it is a console, okay, where it is purely depend upon like Prometheus and the traces to display the metrics, logs, and traces. Okay, it will not tell, but it doesn't do any piggybacking. Okay, it's all the responsibility of traces, method, Prometheus, and the logs. Logs we can. There is another tool which is called as the Loki, where it is used. The Loki is something is kind of like an agent, which it has to be installed, on the server. That's where like it will help in order to fetch the logs and present it to the Grafana. So the Grafana responsibility is like it just sits as a front end console, where it will try to display all the the dashboards, telemetry data from all these four um, pillars of the system. So that's about like the Prometheus. Basically it was found from the 2012. So then later it became very popular. So then then it always like kind of like a the time series database. Every metric is something like a time series database, where it has its own database running in the backend. I think it is MySQL, where whenever you run any query, suppose if you would like to compare the current trend with your last 3 months or 4 months, so that's where like it will go and run the query at the backend in the MySQL server. So then it will pull the data, then it will present it to the Grafana. So Grafana doesn't pull any metrics. That's why like Prometheus will do to pull the metric. It's only work for the metrics. And whereas about the traces, okay. So as we detailedly discuss about like the end-to-end tracing for a particular request, okay. So that's
Hey,
where like
Sagar,
this
Sagar,
tracing.
1 second.
Yeah.
Sagar,
Tell me.
yeah, are you sharing that the slides or I am not seeing the slides? That's what I am.
Oh,
Yeah, even I'm seeing only the
I'm
first
already
slide.
sharing it.
No, no,
Apologies.
you are
Okay.
seeing
I'm
only
already
one,
sharing it.
only first one only. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, that's why I requested to share the second one.
This is the one I'm sharing
Uh,
it actually.
No, no, no.
no, no, no,
We
nothing.
saw
Only
the
first one only you are showing. First
yeah.
slide
I
only
requested first
I'm
one.
able to see.
Can you just
Uh,
go with the second one? We missed out the second one. It
I'm
got
not
stuck, I
able
don't
to
know.
see your slides. Only first
one
slide only
second.
I'm
I'll
seeing.
just I'll just
Yeah,
run through. You are able to see first slide?
First slide
yeah.
only.
Till
That this
now,
is
we
the
saw only the first
but the
slide.
app line landscape is there, right? It's complex. That first slide only. The globe.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure. Apologies. I'll just share it. But anyways, I'll just share this one. Not a problem. How about now?
Yeah, it's visible now.
Okay. You're able to see it, right?
Yeah, second slide we can
Yes,
see.
ma'am.
Okay.
Can you run through the other slides, whatever you have covered? Just want to see that what contents are there.
This one?
Can you just run through the slides because
Yeah.
whole session we
Three
stick
pillars
only
of
on the first slide.
observability,
Yeah,
open telemetry. What is telemetry?
we can't
And
see anything.
Prometheus and
Only we stuck on the slide two only.
Yeah. Can you just move to the slide,
Third
please?
slide.
presentation note. I'm not sure what is an issue with the presentation. How about now? Observability and monitoring.
Yeah, we can see. Can you click on third slide? Now we can see.
I'm not sure because I just clicked here because this slideshow also should cover.
Arrow key is not
How about?
working. I think you are moving the slide bit using arrow key, but that thing was not working actually.
Okay, okay, okay. Sure,
So
sure.
only
I'll
if
just
you
I'll not jump into presentation mode. Okay, I'll just quickly recap that. The one like which we discussed about this observability and monitoring. Okay, so this one like talk about like what is the major difference and how we are going to differentiate between the monitoring and observability and what are the key parameters or the key element that can be considered in order to differentiate between monitoring and observability. uh, to go into deeper further, we spoke about what are the three pillars like logs, traces, and metrics, how they're different from each other. Then coming to like how I wanted to, how I would like to like extract the data. So that's where like these open telemetry, which is like a collector which comes in like the package where it will place a measure in order to extract the three different things and present it to the Grafana. And coming to this telemetry, what exactly the telemetry is that this could be the logs, metrics, or traces. So this all like having dependencies together, talk each other. And coming to, I was talking about like the Prometheus, Grafana, and the traces. Okay, so the traces are used because if you talk about like AppDynamics and Dynatrace, right? Because these are kind of like an open source tools. Okay, so you'll not get any ready-made solution available. Okay, so you have to have build some logic around that. So see, suppose if I wanted to um, like the traces. Okay, for example, forget about like the telemetry. Okay, forget about the telemetry. Okay, I don't want to just get all the class and method level. I just wanted to trace from the login to the logout. Okay, let us there might be some 5 to 6 screens where the end user might have performed. Okay, so in that case, what happens is like this AppDynamics, Dynatrace, and Neuralink. Okay, so they are kind of like having an artificial intelligence and machine learning mechanism inbuilt in. So the moment you deploy an agent, okay, whether let it be agent based or agentless monitoring, right? So once you have an agent based deployed on it, so what happens is like it for example, if I talk about an app dynamics, so the moment the agent is deployed on a particular application server, it just capture everything on that application. Okay, so then it will present it in a flow map. Suppose if we talk about a Dynatrace, so where we call it as like a service flow map, it is similar to AppDynamics, but that it is not that much beauty as AppDynamics it has. Suppose if you go to the Neuralink, we call it as a service map. Okay, again that this view is like not beauty than this AppDynamics and Dynatrace. Okay, so but to adopt those solutions, right? So this is a pretty expensive, and from the observability standpoint they are still not matured solution. Okay, so considering that these open source tools, right? So there is a very limitation in terms of like getting in a support, because until and unless you go for a Grafana Labs, which is kind of like an enterprise edition. Otherwise, if you are using for only Grafana local, so you have to just trust on you have to reach out to only on the community groups, which I will share them over the end of the session. So that is the major difference between the commercial tools and the open source tools. Okay, so coming back to this traces, right? So that's where like these Grafana is not having a capability to show like end to end transaction, forget about the data. I don't want the data, but at least I wanted to see like how the request has been traversed from one location, one position to another position. So these tools are having doesn't have any capability. But when it comes to observability, right, yes, these tools are like standing on top of AppD, Dynatrace, and the New Relic. So that's where like this tempo, we call it as a tempo utility, which is provided by the Grafana labs, where it will help to extract the traces from your entire application from showing up end to end. So then it will present it into the Grafana. Okay, so that's the one thing. And coming to like implementation, okay, so okay boss, I understand, like I got a requirement from the customer. Okay, so now I wanted to, I'll just bigger this one. Okay. Now customer says that yes, boss, I understand your, all the capabilities, your particular company capability and your service, your SI service implementer capabilities. So now I wanted to understand like what is your implementation approach? Okay. So I'm having a Kubernetes cluster. There's a one pod sitting on it, and where you are having like a multiple containers. Like there are some database related, there are like microservices, there are dependent services, or there are like independent services, and also there are some some other istio services are sitting on top of that. Okay, so now I want to measure the performance by using this open telemetry solution by adopting Grafana, Prometheus, and the Agar is nothing but is one of a open telemetry. Sorry, it is something like a traces tempo, but tempo is like very expensive than Agar. So that's the reason nowadays like Agar become very popular in order to implement the distributed testing. So if you look at this one, right, okay, so this one will give you about let's assume that, so this is something like a overall customer ecosystem. Okay, and where you are having like a different systems are having, and there is a request coming from an API call is making from an outside system. So then via gateway, okay, so there could be some gateway. So they here it could be like WAF, like web application firewall, or there may be the firewall might have built on like Google Cloud or AWS or whatever it is. Let's assume that if it is an AWS, there would be like WAF, which you call it as a firewall, where it will filter the traffic and send it to the further downstream systems. And also like where it can do, where you might have applied like all these ingress and egress rules. So based on where you're based on like the authorization authentication, you're going to optimize the security pattern. So from there like the request will be further optimized, so then it will go and talk to the downstream systems. Okay, so if you look at this, like there are like service A and service B, which are like in a different systems. So they are like a .NET. We can assume that there are like a .NET parts. Okay, so now I wanted to understand like, okay, from I'm sitting outside the browser. Okay, let's assume that what I wanted to say is like I wanted to make a checkout call. Okay, I just place an order in an Amazon. So what happens, like I just click a checkout. So okay, so what happens is like when it make a call to the checkout, right, okay, it will what happens via payment via gateway API. So it will call the backend system of the checkout, where it is serving the where it is doing the operations for the checkout. Okay, so what happens is like, so via API communication, it will call that one. Then what happens, then you will land on the payment pages. Okay, by confirming your address, your card number, then you will submit the order. Let us assume that service B is like a submit order microservice. So what happens is like once it makes a checkout, so then it will make a call to the service B, which is like a submit order, right? So then what happens, then it will make a call to the third party system, which is called like a order management system. Okay, so what happens generally from Amazon, right? So once you submit an order, okay, then what happens, the confirmation like order ID, payment details, and all those details, right? So that will be pulled from the third party system, which it is not like maintained by the AWS. Okay, so let's assume that this is something kind of like an architecture. Okay, so now I wanted to trace each and every instance of what I spoke earlier. Okay, so to do that one, either at a high level you have to go like deploy AppDynamics agents either at the pod level or the cluster level or the container level. There are multiple options. Or if you're having like a hybrid model where some services running in the Kubernetes and some services running in the on-premise. So you have to deploy agents on the both places, like on the cloud and on the on-premise. So then you have to there will be definitely a latency when you make a call from the cloud to the on-premise system. Okay, so there are so you need to understand that. And if you want to deploy, so then definitely it will be very expensive. Okay, so considering that, what happens, like, so this Grafana open source tool, so they are coming up like an agent based deployment where you can do the deployment like either you can do manual deployment, and if they're having like a lot of some thousands of parts over there, okay, you can go for like the Jenkins deployment, by committing the code over the GitLab. Then you can use a Ansible playbook where you can do the deployment of agent, or you can go for the Terraform where you can provisions the servers. Okay, if you wanted to implement all this automation via pipeline by either Azure pipeline or maybe Beanstalk or maybe Puppet or whatever the naming you call it. Okay, so all this kind of like is compatible. Grafana is like compatible with all those features. So once you have that, is now it is the time to understand like where I wanted to have this collector. Okay, because these two services, one is doing a checkout and one is doing a submit operation. So what I have done is that, okay, it is making a bidirectional communication, and all are like a Docker images. Okay, even this service mesh, this is also like a Docker, which is like built on a WAF level, out of like where it will do ingress and egress filtering. And if you can see, these are like a Docker images, this is a Docker images, and these are the .NET. So what I have done is that I have like downloaded this open telemetry service A and service B. After that, what it will do, and this hotel collector, which is something like the backend we call it as like. So it will try to capture all the metrics, traces, logs, and exceptions. Okay, then after that, what you have to do, you have to perform three things. Okay, I need to because after collecting this, you don't assume that uh, the job is done. Okay, because you have to implement the distributed traces, because if you don't have any traces in place, right, it is very tough to understand like where exactly my request is failed, whether it is failed at the checkout level, or whether it is failed at the submit level, or whether it is failed at the network level. Okay, so to get that end-to-end request like the traction, right, so you have to have like the traces should be implemented, because the tempo is like very expensive. So we are bringing in the Agar, which is like an open source. It is able to get the traces for the back end and the front end system. Okay, so what happens, this Agar, uh, there is like an AML deployment is there. Okay, where we will try to give all the the define will define like Agar, we define Prometheus, and we define the Grafana on the application. So what happens then, we will deploy that YAML file along with the application pod file, either definition container level, cluster level, or the pod level. So what happens, the moment that is deployed, all the three instances will be up and running. So once you initiate the traffic, so once it start doing that, right, so hotel collector will collect all those things, and for the tracing it will send to the Agar. Okay, then it will come back here. Okay, so then it will go to the Prometheus, where it will get the numeric representation of metrics. So then it will present to the Grafana. So this is kind of like a high level implementation, the where we will try to implement the Grafana. So if you look at this one, so basically this is how. I think I don't have. Okay, so this is how like high level architecture. Okay, so this is like a client environment where I'm having like one app server, one web server, and one database, and this is a Kubernetes. Okay, where my Grafana is running. Okay, and the tempo is running, and you no need to install the tempo on here. Only what you have to install is that you have to enable the Grafana definition in each of these servers. Okay, once you have that right, then what happens? This tempo, because this open telemetry is deployed on these three systems. Okay, with the tempo it will just collect the data, then it will send to Grafana. It will show here Prometheus, it will collect this, and the logs will be get this Loki, then it will send it to Grafana. And alert manager is nothing but, so based on the overall application performance, okay, whether there is any deviation or there is any threshold, okay, maybe the service level agreements, whatever the like the conditions, okay, I wanted to my CPU should not reach beyond 80%, my CPU should not reach beyond 90%. Okay, so whatever the conditions you have agreed from the customer, right, so you are going to like run those conditions using an alert manager in the Grafana. So what happens whenever your system is interacting with the Grafana, if more or less if it is like breaching the thresholds or the conditions, let it be from the warning level or from the critical level, so then immediately it will alert, either it will throw pager duty, or it will send out email notification, or it will create an incident in the service now, or it will create an incident in the ops run, or whatever the ITSM tools like IT service management or IT solution intelligence tool your organization is having, right? So it will create an alert, from there it will create an incident, then it will assign to the particular ITIL manager. So from there it will just go and do that. So that is the overall process how this open telemetry tool will help. And this is like the basic configuration which we will try to do that. And if you look at this one, okay, so basically what Grafana does, okay, so they are saying that boss, we can do log, we can show whatever the data we are having, we are supporting like large number of people, we can do tempo, we can do mimir. Mimir is something like it is something kind of like synthetic monitoring, what it exactly does. And this is about K6 to do the performance testing and alert manager. And this is the graphite open telemetry. And this is kind of like an on call, which I was telling about. Like suppose your organization is purchased the Grafana Labs and they don't want to add any ITSM tool. Okay, in that case, the Grafana on call will help in order to create an incident into the third party system. And this is about like a project. I'll take a pause. Any questions? Okay, that's fine. Uh, so basically, this is what I'm saying when it comes to the capability and the feature, right? Yes, Grafana is like compatible with Splunk, where it can pull the data. It is compatible with the Dynatrace data, where it will pull data metrics, these logs, Elastic. It can pull for AppDynamics. And what basically it does, okay, so if you look at here, okay, it is compatible with all the plugins. Okay, you can get it service now, you can do with Splunk, Signal, on call, Salesforce, SAP. It has all the details available. uh, okay, so that's about this one. uh, I'll just
Here,
quickly share another one. Probably I'll just take another minute to just do that.
Sagar, one doubt, Sagar. Can I
Yeah, tell
ask
me,
you?
sir.
Uh, one thing, Sagar. We have the AppDynamics tool, right? And also
Yeah.
we're using Grafana.
Mm-hmm.
In AppDynamics, there is also full stack observability, and Grafana there is also full stack observability. Then what is the difference between these two?
Yeah, see, from the AppDynamics perspective, right, the full stack observability is nothing but they are talking about like all the six different what I call different layers. Okay, so from their perspective, The full stack observability is nothing but they can measure the performance from the business perspective, from the infrastructure, from the application, from the digital end user experience, from the third party service, from the network layer, and from the security. Okay, so that is the one. But when it comes to the Grafana, right, the full stack observability is nothing but the observability itself. It says that uh, uh, yes, I am here to extract the complete data. Okay, so by using like open telemetry, so that I can measure the logs, how the logs are how the logs are like the scraping on the system, and how the metrics are like collecting, and how the traces are building on the system. But you're having even AppDynamics also, there is open telemetry available. But what
Yes.
happens, like, it is not that much matured solution than Grafana. Okay, so even for open telemetry also, they are going to like chargeable based on the log ingestion, and based on the metrics or whatever you are doing. uh, then it will capture the data, but still you don't have like such a mature solution what Grafana is having to the AppDynamics. They're only talking from the full stack observability from the entire customer ecosystem. Okay, but if you talk about Grafana, this is talking about like entire application ecosystem. That is the one. That is the difference between AppDynamics and Grafana.
Yeah, one more thing. We have will be in AppDynamics will be conferring each and every agent, right? For
Yes, yes,
example, for application purpose, for example, we have for a Java, we will conferring like Java agents or something. In the same
yes.
case, in Grafana also will be having the same thing, or it may differ.
Yeah, it is having. Basically, it is not like a one agent what Dynatrace is having.
Yeah,
So
you'll be having different agents in app day, and here how
yes,
many
yes,
agents
yes.
will be there like that? Can you please
Yes,
let
yes,
me
yes.
know?
But here also, like, what happens here also, they're having like all the, we call it as an exporter. Okay, initially what happens is like, it comes up with a Grafana agent, which is an agent base. So once you need to extract that, then it provides an API key, then along with an YAML file. So in that one, you have to mention about like Prometheus section, the log section, and the trace section. Once you run that, so then if you want to measure a Java application, you have to have like a Java exporter provided by the Prometheus. And if you want to monitor the database, you have to like download the Oracle exporter or whatever it is. Okay, so yes, they are coming in the form of an exporters in
Okay,
Grafana.
okay, okay. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll just show you
So,
the.
hello,
Yeah.
I'm audible. Hello, I'm audible.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Sorry, this is Salman here. I'm new to this observability and monitoring part. So, from the scratch, I'm planning to learn this tool. So, as part of this training, right, are you going to touch only Grafana, or you cover Prometheus also as part of this training?
Basically, as part of the training is right. So I will be covering up the major components of Grafana, which is like a tempo, Agar. I can cover Agar and tempo, which used for the distributed tracing, and I'll cover the log ingestion, which is used by the Loki, where we need to install an agent, and the Prometheus, which is like a metrics scraper, where it will show, and will be measuring a third party systems also by making a call to the third party service and see like how they are behaving it. And we'll be running like PromQL queries and the LogQL queries, and the Grafana also queries, and the dashboards, and we'll be integrating with either Jira or whatever. So it's really kind of like in a real time exposure, so which I will be sharing with you, on the day to day basis.
Okay. So, if I'm correct, so you'll be touching on infra application level logs, and even on the Docker side also you'll explain us, right, how to monitor Docker related services and all.
One second, I think your voice is low. Let me keep
Okay.
my
So,
headphones.
let me know if I'm audible. So what I asked is even you'll touch base on Docker also, like how to monitor Docker service also.
Hello, sorry.
Hello. What I asked is, will you touch base on Docker also?
Yes, 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 of course. Yeah, because uh, what I will be covering up is that I will build a small application. Okay, so I'll try to create a small application using a NetBeans. Let's assume that Hello World, or maybe making a 2 to 3 APIs. Then from there, I'll use a Docker in order to convert that into an executable file Docker image. So then I will take you to the Kubernetes and then virtual machines. So how this image can be deployed on the Kubernetes cluster, along with Prometheus, Grafana, Loki, and the traces. So there will be 4 different parts altogether will be sitting on a Kubernetes cluster. So then I will be connecting you to the Grafana, the front end console, where it will give you the interaction of the overall that the newly built application performance, and also like how the Loki is helping to send the logs. Okay, all these things I'll be covering up during this course, Sharvanan.
Okay, thank you. Because I'm at the beginner level, so I just want
Okay,
to
okay,
learn
sure, sure,
everything from
definitely,
the
definitely,
scratch.
no problem.
So by listening your presentation, right, I thought it would be for it is targeted for intermediate and advanced users. But you'd help us for beginners also, right? If somebody wants to learn from the scratch, like how this observability and
Yes, yes,
monitoring
yes.
tools works. Okay,
Yeah,
okay, fine.
definitely, definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
I'm there to
So
help
okay,
you attain.
yeah. So everyday class session, right? So you'll share us the steps, documents, and all, right? If I want to
Yes, yes,
practice, or I
I'll
want
do
to
that.
try on my
I'll do
phone.
that. Post the
Okay,
session.
okay. Uh-huh.
Post the session. I'll just pass it to Anita ma'am.
Uh-huh.
She
Okay,
will share it with you, or you guys can directly reach out to me. No problem.
fine. Okay. Thank you. I'm done. Yeah, I'm dropping down. Yeah, because I have another meeting. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what the pretty much. I think I've eaten up your time. Sorry about that. Hope you like the session. So any questions before we wrapping it up?
Nothing from my side. Thank you.
Okay. Hi Musharraf. I think you joined late. Uh, okay. Hi Karnakar. Any questions?
Nothing. Thank you.
Okay, sure, sure. Okay, okay. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thanks.
Good day, and
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
yeah, good weekend.
Thank you.